Hello, friends. My name is Tracy Smith, and I'm the director of Family Faith Every Day. And here we are again for our Family Faith Every Day in Conversation series. This series is an opportunity to feature different speakers and authors and experts in Christian faith formation, but to do it in a way that is more conversational. So, what we're going to do today is just hopefully the same version of a conversation that Laura and I would probably be having in private. We both love to talk about children's spirituality, children's faith formation. Laura is a PhD in New Testament studies. Now I'm going to have to confirm that when we talk. I point that out because there is such deep richness to the children's writing that she has. It takes a lot of skill to write something for children. We think, oh, it's simple, to write something for fourth graders, you need to be in fifth grade. Well, that's not true. And Laura brings a deep well of expertise to the things that she writes. Today, we're going to be talking mostly about the liturgical year and children. If that sounds like a heavy topic or a wild topic, I mean, I don't mean heavy in terms of emotionally heavy, just heavy in terms of maybe more in the church nerd category. I hope that you'll stick with us because the conversation is going to be about seasons and about rhythms and how the liturgical year can help anchor children in that. I've asked Laura to bring a few show and tell items that I can't wait for you to see. And so stick with us. Thanks for being here for Family Faith Every Day in Conversation. Laura Alary, hello. So glad to
Hello,
see you
Tracy
this
Smith. Good
morning.
morning to you.
Hello, hello. So, Laura, I just did my introduction of you before I let you in from the waiting room, and I have to admit, I had a little bit of a bobble when I was talking about your PhD. Please tell me it's correct that your PhD is in New Testament, right?
That is correct.
Okay. I was fearful
You're
that
right.
I had said something wrong. I know we're not talking about that, but as I said in the intro, that's one part of your bio that's really important to me. We're not going to go a real scholarly direction, but I love the scholarship that undergirds your work. So
Well, I'd also be mortified if you said I had a PhD in something. That's just
can you imagine? That could be, we can make funny blooper outtake reels. She has a PhD in anthropology, psychology, literature. Okay. Well, I also said, which is true, that you are a beloved children's author, that you and I are pals, that we chat all the time about children's spirituality, and that today we're here to talk about the liturgical year. The other thing I promised was show and tell. And so I'm delighted to see that you have an array of show and tell ready to show us. You want to just take it from there and show us some of the things you brought?
sure. And my biggest piece of show and tell is actually not visible behind me, but I will tell you what. Oh, yeah, that's
A
right.
preview.
You have your own, which I've not yet seen. So this is working out well. I will say that behind me. I have a series of books from Paraclete Press on the liturgical year. These ones are intended for somewhat older kids. There's more text to them, although it can be broken down. I would say sort of like a 7 to 10 age range. So we've got, sorry for all the movement
I
here.
love it. Yeah.
Look, Child's Guide to Advent and Christmas. Make Room, which was the first one I wrote. Child's Guide to Lent and Easter. Then we have Rise, Child's Guide to Eastertide, and Breathe, which covers the time from Ascension, Pentecost, and the growing time. So I'll just put those out there. And this here is something that's quite precious to me. That is my church year calendar. It's based on a similar one that you can get from Godly Play Resources.
Love it.
And this is one that when my kids were toddlers, I guess, my dad and I made this one together, and it's designed so that it's a puzzle, like the parts come out of it. I won't do that right now because it's bound to fall apart. But the individual, um, what in the Godly Play version are individual squares.
Mhm.
In this case, each season is its own piece, and we did it that way because we were making it without the benefit of a bandsaw, so we just had a handheld jigsaw and we just couldn't be quite as precise. But this has gotten so much use in my family and my household. Um, you can make something like this out of a pie plate. It doesn't have to be,
Hmm.
uh, you know, fancy like this, but
Yeah.
I'd seen the Godly Play ones and I thought they were so beautiful. And I wanted to make that investment for my own household because the liturgical year has been really important for me spiritually, and it was for my family as well. So that's been kind of a centerpiece of our seasonal table for like 2 decades now.
I love it so much. As you're talking, I know you have one more piece of show and tell, but
Yeah.
I wanted to say about the liturgical year and about that calendar in particular, just to back up a little bit. I assume most of the people watching our conversation are Christian educators, pastors, people that are pretty well versed on the liturgical year. But as a pastor, I don't want to leave anyone behind that's
Yeah.
like, what are we talking about? Is it too hard to just show with the calendar that you have what we mean by the liturgical year? So, liturgical year, if you are like, what are they talking about? Don't fear. This is part of what we're talking about is trying to help children learn it. And if you're learning along with your children, no worries. So, the liturgical year is a way of marking time in the church. So, is it too hard to show me on your clock like where it starts? And
No,
then
not at
how it
all.
goes around. I don't want you to worry about pieces falling. But
Okay, so just
yeah,
just bear with me with the
yeah,
turning around. So
sure.
yeah, in essence, this is how the church tells time.
Mhm.
And it's a circle.
Mhm.
And it's a it, as it's a circles are wonderful because they don't really have a beginning or an end.
Right.
And so, but they or they, I guess you could say they have a beginning, which is
It
also
was also the
kind of
end.
the ending, and then you just keep going around. So here is the beginning, which
Uh-huh.
is Advent, the season of Advent. So all of
The
these
purple.
purple. Now, in some churches, the color for Advent is blue. I am a purple Advent person because I really like that connection between Advent and Lent. Anyway, so Advent, we're getting ready for Christmas, the mystery of Christmas, which is here, followed by Epiphany. Then we have this season after Epiphany, which then leads us into Lent, which is another time of preparation where we're getting ready for Easter and Eastertide, which is this long white season here, leading toward Ascension and Pentecost, which is the bright red. Ooh, hot. Um, and then, you'll notice that almost fully half the circle on my calendar is green. And that's sometimes called ordinary time. I've called it the growing time. Um, Nothing wrong with the word ordinary, but it doesn't really suggest um, it doesn't really suggest all the potential that's
Yeah,
present in this half
right.
of the year. Now, in some churches, like the Episcopal Church, for instance, there are all kinds of saints' days and other celebrations that fall in this half.
Yeah,
So this is kind of like a bare bones version.
yeah,
And different denominations, different Christian traditions configure the calendar somewhat differently.
sure.
But I would say for the most part, everybody has the three great days. So Christmas, Easter, whoops, I've got Easter in the wrong place. How embarrassing. Christmas, Easter, and Pentecost, and then the times of preparation leading up to them.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. And thanks for taking that little sidebar detour. Okay, the other show and tell piece.
Okay, my other show and tell. I'm excited about this because
Oh, me too.
this is a fabric book, as you can see. It's a fair size. And I made this when my son was still an infant. And so before I actually open it, I'll tell you why I made it. The church we were part of at the time had a nursery, but it was an old building. The nursery was in the basement. The church had, the congregation had done their best to fix it up, but
Mm.
I still didn't really like to be in it. It was really far removed from the sanctuary. Whenever I was down there, I felt isolated. So I wanted to stay in church with my baby as much as I could. But I was also mindful of the people around me and their needs for, excuse me, quiet and focus. It was just like a microcosm of the bigger question, how do we take the needs of different people in different families and put them all in a community and balance them all out? It's sort of this like the
Mhm.
ongoing question.
Yeah.
So I thought, is there something I could do to occupy my son? Let us both remain in worship longer. But I didn't just want to distract him. So I had this idea that if I could make him a book out of cloth, it would be tactile. It would be something that he could handle. He could turn the pages, pull on them, chew on them, whatever. And if I could connect it, though, to what was actually happening around him and what he was seeing, then it wouldn't just be a distraction. It would be a learning tool as well.
Mhm.
So I made this book, and this is actually my favorite page. So this is Advent, and you can see on this side we have a Jesse tree at home, which is another way of like a lot of people are familiar with an Advent calendar. A Jesse tree is similar to that in that it counts the days through Advent, but by telling stories
Yeah.
about Jesus' family tree. So this is meant to represent our Jesse tree at home. Here are the candles. And having said I'm a purple Advent person, I made this blue, but so it's got these little flaps on it so he could open and close them and see the nice shiny flames. And my son is now 2022. And I asked him last night, I said, "Do you remember this book?" And he said, "Yeah, of course I remember the
Of
book."
course, I
And he
remember.
remembered especially this. And so then we move through, we've got the Christ candle for Christmas. And in our church, in our congregation, we had a very, very large Christ candle. Like it was probably, oh, I don't know. The candle itself was maybe 3 feet tall and it had a huge Chi symbol on it and it was in a brass stand. So it was very prominent. So that one and the Holy Family and then Epiphany, Lent. I don't need to go through this whole thing, but you
Yeah,
kind of
but
get the
it's
idea.
it's organized around the liturgical year.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
follows the liturgical year, and I incorporated um, symbols. Well, I like from the story, but then I also I based the sacrament pages. I added those in, but they were based very much on what he was actually seeing there in the sanctuary.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, so the book, it took me a long time to make.
Yeah.
Another parent in the church actually said, "Oh, could you make me one of those?" I said, "I'd have to charge you $500."
$5,000.
Um, but it was a really precious thing. I put it
Oh,
in the diaper bag and we brought it to worship for years because first with my son and then his two sisters, and it traveled back and forth with us. Um, Not only did it accomplish the goal of letting all of us remain in worship longer, but I also think that it created these little threads of connection between what was happening in church and what was happening at home
yeah.
because of the repetition of the symbols and the colors. Anyway, it ended up in a box in the basement, as these
Mm,
things do, and I was down there a few years ago digging around and I pulled it out. And you know how when you kind of you come across an artifact from your past and you,
yeah.
you just get flooded by memories. So
Yeah.
so I was sitting on the floor with this book just remembering and I thought, wow, I wonder if there's a way of adapting this somehow so that other families could use it in a similar kind of way, in that bridge building way. And so I developed this whole idea of a board book with all sorts of like flaps and interactive things. Um, I pitched the idea. I didn't realize at the time how expensive it is to produce something like
Yeah.
that. And Beaming Books came back to me and said, "We think this has potential as a picture book." And of course, this one, there it is. This does
I'm
not have
jumping
any,
the gun, Laura. I'm jumping the gun. I don't mean to.
this has no words. And I thought, I think we need some words, but they need to be really simple.
Hmm.
So it took me some time, but what I tried to do is create this idea of a journey around the circle, but with each season distilled as much as I could distill it into
Hmm.
just a couple of phrases.
Yes.
So yeah,
So
and I was
that's, oh,
sorry.
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't
No,
mean
I
to
was just going
interrupt.
to say I was actually a bit worried that the text was going to be too simple.
Yeah,
And I knew that the illustrations were going to like
carry it.
make or
Yeah.
break it. And they really make it, I think.
I cannot agree more. And now I'm going to go off of our script because we had kind of chatted about like, well, what should I show you? And I had given some ideas, but since you just referenced the simplicity of the words, I would love to just show a couple, just read a couple pages. And I won't tr intend to do it like with your favorite TV show where it's like a cliffhanger and you leave it. But if that happens, you'll just have to get the book. I want to do that in a second, but first just respond to your the book that you showed briefly because I know that everybody is going to be like, how do I get that book? I will say you need to research quiet books. If you do that phrase quiet book, if you put that into Google or into Etsy, you will see books like that. Did you know? This is a question for you. Do you know which tradition has a lot of quiet books, Laura, like that?
I do not.
I will tell you, it is the Mormon, the Church of Latter-day Saints, which is not we're not in lots of conversation usually as like the main
I'm
line.
going to
So
see.
oh, achoo!
Nope.
Which is probably why that didn't come to mind. But in part because their services are very, very long.
Hmm.
So the thing, if you are wanting, if you're like, how can I get a pattern or buy a book that's similar? I don't know if I've seen one that's based around the liturgical year, and it might be because a great many of them are produced by Mormon folks. But I have seen plans for pages and you could pick and choose and make your own or you could buy one. So that's the road I would go down if someone's like, I really want that exact thing. If I were trying to resource an entire church, I
Mhm.
think it would not be very practical to have one for every person. Like, you know, it would just be so hard. And so that's where I think the Around the Circle book really, really comes in because you could just put one copy in every pew if you wanted to, or send it home with parents. So I do want to show, I mean, the illustrator Claire Westwood, I mean, she did knock it out of the park.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it starts out, a circle goes round and round. How do you feel about having your book read to you, Laura? No beginning, no end. And then the circle is a path through special times. And then you go around, and I love this. I'm curious, did you have to like to teach Claire about the liturgical year or did she do research on it? I mean, she made it a
She did research on it. Um,
yeah.
Claire and I, we've communicated since, but we were not in touch directly during the process of her
Yeah.
putting this together. But I will say that after after all the files were in and so on, we did get in touch, and actually I had a chance to interview her. So we have
Oh,
a
okay.
conversation that's up on my website. So if anybody's interested in hearing her talk about the process.
Oh yeah,
Doing the
definitely
illustration.
want to link to that. That's cool.
But one of the things that was interesting to me is I asked her if the church year was part of her background, and it wasn't.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so she did have to do her research, and I think it was with some trepidation that she entered into it because
Hmm.
she didn't want to inadvertently use symbols that weren't correct or that were
Right, sure.
inappropriate somehow, and she wanted to make sure the order was right. And um, yeah, but yeah, you used the phrase knocked it out of the park. She totally did.
I mean, it's amazing. So you go around the circle in the book, and that, like, all that is to say, like, when we talk about the illustrations and the beauty, I don't want to ignore the words because it's exactly what I said at the beginning. Few words, that means they're more important, right? The anchor, like the kind of, scaffolding on which his beautiful illustrations stand is a very, very well thought out journey with very few words. And so each word matters and it matters what you're saying. And I could definitely envision a child memorizing this book if he read it over and over. And then it just ends with let's circle around for another year, right? Um, and I love the way the original vision was honored and changed. As you
Yeah.
were talking, even before you said the board book, I was like, why this should be a board book. So just let's buy enough copies of this one so that we can make a board book version. Um, I mean, I hope that you're not like, oh no, because you are also work in a library. But I was like, well, I guess you could take the pages and like cover them in plastic tape or something to make them like tear proof or bite proof. But I would say I hope you agree, even as a librarian, Laura, that this is a book that if it gets chewed on or torn, we'll just lovingly repair it, and that's just a good thing for it, right? A
Yeah.
good.
So be it.
Um, I think one of the things I wanted to pivot to a little bit or talk about with regard to the liturgical year generally and using this book specifically is a sense of rhythm and security. So that's one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot. Um, I I think that in Christian education circles, sometimes we're always pursuing novelty, right? And some people might be like, oh, well, this is an example, right? Like, this is a new book on the liturgical year. That said, like, what what would you say, what would you say about this topic of always doing something new or keeping things from becoming boring? Where's the balance there?
Well, on that question, I would have to say that I personally, maybe I have a very high tolerance for boredom, but I, as a person and also as a parent,
Yeah.
lean quite heavily into tradition.
Hmm.
I not thoughtlessly,
Yeah.
like it has to be tradition that has meaning, but um, it I find it very powerful to be part of a flow that's been going on for generation upon generation.
Mm.
That to me is far more powerful than novelty.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just this is another little show and tell, I guess. There is I've put together a guide that goes along with the book. It's downloadable for free from the publisher, but there's a section in it, just like a page maybe, why celebrate the church year at home?
Mhm.
Um, and I talk a little bit there about why, you know, because I think before I start handing out ideas for, how
Mhm.
you might observe it, I think the bigger question is why would I want to do this?
Mhm.
And you mentioned rhythm and repetition. Um, yeah, it's a powerful teaching tool. It's very soothing and reassuring for young
Mhm.
children to have this sense of rhythm. Um, but the bigger question is like, um, sorry, my train of thought just completely derailed there. Um, what is it fundamentally that this is all about?
Sure.
And I would say the church year is based around the story of Jesus.
Yeah.
So that is what that's who we're following as we go around the circle. And we keep, it's not that it's always the same. I mean, we
Mhm.
hear the same stories, we move through the same seasons year after year, but as we do so, we change, we grow, our lives develop, they move in directions we didn't expect. So we're constantly encountering the same stories in different ways. And we're hearing new things in them, we're gaining new insights. And I think that that says something really powerful about the life of faith.
Mhm.
Um, so there's a groundedness to the
Yeah.
tradition and the repetition, but then there's endless potential for growth and deepening within that.
Yes. I love that. As you were talking, I was looking at because over your shoulder, and that's in my sight, your calendar, and I was thinking, oh, like, yeah, what would it be like? You could get a printable version of this. Like you said, you can make it on a paper plate. What would it be like for families to have that liturgical calendar in view in their own homes? I don't know that we do that a lot, but I think I might start actually. Like, um, I think that could be so powerful just to orient because you see with that, you see what's coming. And I was thinking about I live in a place where there's a lot of change in the seasons of the year. There's a winter, spring, summer, fall rhythm. And as you were saying, like it's not the same every time. It's reminds me of that rhythm too, right? Like every winter is not necessarily harsh and dark. Like every Lent might not be harsh and difficult, right? But you go around again and you know what's coming. So if you're in a time of preparation or waiting or darkness, you know what might be coming. And I think that's the value in the other set of books that you have. It's is that called Around the Circle too? Is there a name for them?
That's called Circle of Wonder
Circle of
series.
Wonder. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't they're not in competition. They work together, right? So you can follow those books throughout. The idea for a practice that I put in Faithful Families is not one that has stuck in our family over the years, but it is one that I think would work. And the idea is to follow the liturgical year by changing the color of like a tablecloth or a bookcase or something with those seasons, right? Kind of to try and reflect at home. And in my congregation, they change I always want to call it a Paramount, like Paramount Pictures, but is it like
Paramenta.
Paramount, the cloths. And that's something that I don't know if your church is like my church. Uh, there were a few people that really understood it, but not everybody did. Like, there were a few people that knew to go to the calendar to find out when you change the colors. But I think that there can be an assumption sometimes, even for people that have been in the church for many, many years, that everybody knows what we're doing and why we're changing the colors, and that's just not true. And then I think there's also I would love to speak to those who might be watching whose churches don't do this at all. Like they're not at all oriented to this around the circle. And so what I think a church like that or a family like that might get from this is just a perfect introduction. Right? It's not like there's a 45-page discourse on like all of the colors and what they mean. You just get oriented to it goes around and around. Jesus dies every year. He's born every year, and then we go around.
Well, I had an interesting, like a brief conversation with someone I know who is Baptist.
Mm,
And she said, and she's an educator, and she said to me, well, your book is beautiful. She said, but a lot of my families come from churches that are not liturgical at
mm,
all.
yeah.
How can I present this to them in a way that's meaningful? And I said, well, I think it comes down to that question of the circle being about following Jesus along
Mhm.
this path. And then as we keep going around and around, following, we're learning slowly how to connect our own lives and our own experiences with the story of Jesus
Mhm.
and to kind of align our own patterns with the pattern. And that's what discipleship is. So even if it's a non-liturgical church,
Yeah.
that's, I think, is probably going to be at the core of what it is to be a Christian following Jesus. So in that sense, the book and the liturgical year is relevant to everybody.
Yes.
So that's one way of talking about it, even if your church is not highly liturgical. Um, I had so many things firing off in my head, just
Right.
trying to get them all back. Another one, oh yeah, so the seasonal table, or what I call the seasonal table. I think you said it didn't really take off in
Hmm.
your household. In mine, it did, and we actually still use it. I just have a little, like a tiny little wooden table, and we change the cloths, and we kind of combine the liturgical year um, with the natural seasons.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's all kind of rolled in together, and flowers and things that we find outside, and that's a tradition that we've kept up for decades. I think um, because it's very simple,
Yes.
and like the fundamentals of it stay the same, but then we can always bring in new new elements.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the other thing that I wanted to say, though, and it was connected with what you just said, and now I'm thinking, how is it? Um, so
Fun.
Diana Butler Bass oh, I know what it was. I was thinking about the way kids in kindergarten, for instance, it's been a while, so maybe they don't do this anymore. But when my kids were younger, they always had a calendar time.
Mhm.
And there was a calendar on display, and it usually had not only months and days of the week and so on, but there were often like things to indicate what the weather was. And so the kids would gather in a circle and they would talk about where, where they were in the calendar. Um, I think the liturgical calendar can have a similar function if we choose to make it visible.
Yep.
Um, And Diana Butler Bass has a new book out. It's called A Beautiful Year,
Yep.
and it's about the liturgical year. And I just finished reading it a couple weeks ago. But the introduction to this book
Mm.
really affected me. I went back and I read it multiple times
Mm.
um, because she talks about calendars and different ways people tell time and how calendars actually shape our lives. We don't necessarily think about this, but calendars tell us what the important days are.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they kind of tell us what our priorities should be. Like,
Mhm.
these are the days that are important. This is what they represent.
Mm.
Therefore, this is what we value. So she says for her, following the liturgical year has been,
Mm.
um, what does she say? She says it provides a different sense of time and a
Mm.
different set of priorities, or actually, I wrote down something here. Yeah, she says it frames an alternative story about anticipation, peace, justice, enlightenment,
Mm.
failure and death, rebirth, and living in love. So, I mean, she's writing to adults, obviously, but she's saying that we have a choice. We don't have to let another calendar kind of colonize our minds. She said we have this resource to keep us oriented toward what is deeply valued and
Mm.
real. So as an adult, I read that and it made the hair stand up on my arms. And I thought, yes, this, like the liturgical year is easy. If we get into, oh, what color should the cloth be? And oh, somebody forgot to change the pulpit falls. And it sounds really nerdy and kind
Yeah.
of niche. Um, and I know some people take it in that direction, but it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be some like arcane piece of church lore. It's about what what we value
Yes. Yeah.
and the path that we choose to walk together. So I think as grown-ups, that's profoundly important. And if it is important, then why shouldn't we start teaching it early?
I love that, and I think that's where I'm gonna end us. I said that I told you we're gonna end on a high note, a place where you're like, how could I possibly add to that? Yes, like the liturgical year and honoring it is about priorities and the rhythm with which you're going to orient your life.
Yeah,
That's it, right?
period.
And period. And whatever tools you could use that in your home, whatever tools you can use to have a symbol of how your home and your family are oriented in this way, use them. So amazing, amazing, amazing. Before we say goodbye, I always do want people to have the opportunity to know where to find you or not. Don't come to Laura's house. But how can people connect with you if they want to follow up? You mentioned your website so that people could find that interview that you talked about. How can people, I know that you're not making them their own books, but how can people be in touch?
So whoops, sorry, my cat just leapt. The website is definitely the starting place. So it's lauraalary.ca, Laura.Alary.ca. There's a sign up for a newsletter there, which comes out usually once a month, although this summer it's not been quite as frequent.
Ish. Yeah.
Ish. Um, I do have a Laura Alary author account on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at laura.alary. Um, I'm probably more present on Instagram than on Facebook. Um, but the website is the best. And there is a contact form. Like if someone has a
Yeah.
question they want to pose directly, you can get access that way.
Perfect. And is Around the Circle available? It's July 17th right now as we're recording this. Is it available? I know you don't have yours yet.
I do not have my copy yet, so I'm sort of looking on yours with envy. Um,
It's so pretty.
the official publication date is July 28th.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but well, if like I went on Amazon yesterday and it said it's available. So
Yeah,
uh,
that's why I was wondering about it too. That's sometimes a little bit. Yeah. So by the time we get this all up on the interwebs, it will be
it should,
available. Should
yeah.
be available. Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. You are not getting away from me and these. We're going to be doing another conversation later on, a little bit more formal one, but I'll say more about that later. And just thank you so much for sharing your wisdom in accessible ways, and blessings to you and blessings to all of you who are watching as you celebrate the church year with your families and your congregations.
Thank you, Tracy, for the opportunity.
Oh, such a joy. Bye bye.
Bye.